Or you can leave here today and say, you know what, there's some interest in that, and maybe there's something else that I could do with that. So over the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to try to give you as much of this as we can, okay? So our very first speaker that we have coming in for this pathway is, ironically enough, perfectly, a General McLean graduate. So we have Isaac Petcash here. Isaac graduated in 2017. And it does not feel like it was 2017, because I remember him being here with me and being the guy that I would say, man, I need you to do this. Man, I need you to do that. And, you know, are you guys familiar with Isaac? You see him on TV here in Erie? Okay, Isaac is on Erie News Now. He's at a lot of our events, and he is just plain good at what he does. And when he was here at General McLean, we started GM Radio back then. It was our very first radio station, and we bought the equipment because he was interested, and he started to do play-by-play for us, and he's just a natural. And what he did was we created a program because we had Isaac, and then whenever Isaac left, truthfully, nobody wanted to do it because they were like, I can't do what that dude did. He was so good at it. And so we've had a little bit of trouble with replacing that part of it. But from that time, and he's going to tell you about his background, but from that time I could tell you, looking at him, that he should be doing something like what he's doing right now. But for a lot of you, it's just unclear. So the more of this stuff we do, the more you're going to learn, the more you're going to know. Okay? All right, 2017 grad, GM grad, Isaac Petcash.
What's up, guys? If nothing else, I get you out of class a little bit for today, so that's kind of cool, right, on Thursday. I got at least a couple fist bumps. All right, we're going to play an audience participation game to start things out. How many of you have ever had a situation, this can be at any point in your life, whether you were in school, whether you were with your parents, whether you were with a friend, where you had an opportunity to ask somebody to do something or ask somebody that would really help you along, and you said, I'm a little too nervous to do this. And you didn't ask. How many of you had that situation? Okay, the people who have your hands down, you're lying to me. That's cool. It's all right. Most of you had your hands raised. So I had that situation at General McLean with Mr. Meno and what he just talked to you about before I came on. So for a few weeks my junior year, I was really scared. In fact, a lot of you, if you see me on TV, you probably think, man, this guy won't stop talking. But I'm actually an introvert. I don't really like talking in public. Things like this sometimes make me nervous. And so for a few weeks on end in my junior year, I was like, man, it'd be cool to have a radio station on campus, right? Get to talk about whatever, showbiz, Taylor Swift. I'm sorry, I'm not a music person. That's the only name I could come up with. Sports, if you're into sports. And so for a few weeks, I was like, man, it would be really cool to have like a radio station or something of that nature where we could broadcast what kids were interested in and what you guys are interested in today. And I went into Mr. Meadows' office the one day. I'm like, hey, I got this idea. And I didn't end up pitching it to him. Instead, I just talked to him about some other thing that I was somewhat remotely interested in. And I left the room and I was like, oh, it didn't do what I wanted to do. So it waited a few weeks, and then finally I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask Mr. Meadow to see if I can put a radio station together. And sure enough, a few weeks after that, we had GM Radio. We started broadcasting games. If you guys are into sports at all, you like guys who do play-by-play, people who call the games on the air, some are pretty good, some aren't. That's what we did. Every single Friday, we'd go up to the press box, we'd do the GM football games, and we would make these events come to life. We did stuff out in the community, too. We would talk about what was going on with GM events. I was big into theater, band. I see a Quest shirt there in the background, which is hilarious. That was my freshman year show, so I kind of like that. That's kind of cool. Makes me feel old, so thanks for that. And we would talk about anything GM. It didn't have to be school. It could be things that were happening throughout the world during the week or during the year. And it was really neat. And it was all because I asked a question and had an idea that I actually was able to ask to Mr. Meadow. And in your guys' case, I'm sure you can think of a situation where you had that same thing happen to you. So, all that aside, General McLean was a really big launch-off point to help me get to where I am today. Ended up going to college in Toledo. It's just about a 3.5-hour drive from here in Ohio. And got a chance to do some really cool things, have some neat experiences, do some games at a TV station, work in television, do some editing, do some video shooting. Heck, I even did a class on TikTok. I don't have the first clue in the world how to use TikTok. So I could probably learn a thing from all of you guys today. Snapchat, too. My wife's trying to teach me how to do it. I'm still not very good at that either. Anyway, so high school and college was a big thing for me because I got an opportunity to do all of these neat things, but the one thing all of you have that I didn't was this pathway. You have an opportunity to figure out what you want to do, what you don't want to do, and at the same time, learn from people that have done this before. So, another audience participation question. How many of you think you know what you want to do when you grow up? Okay. Everyone's lying to me again. Oh my goodness. That's really neat. It's cool to have an idea of what you want to do. But the most important thing is to be able to figure out how you exactly want to do it. Because there's a lot that goes into your career. It's not just show up to work every single day and, go about your business and things like that. And I had to learn that the hard way. So when I graduated from General McLean in 2017, I went to Toledo and I thought I knew everything, right? I had just come up with a radio station. We had done some games. It was super neat. I thought I had all this knowledge. And I get to college and I had to take what was called a placement test for my major. I was super excited. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to ace this thing. I'm never going to have to take any of these classes that these people or other people are going to have to take. I was second worst in my class for the test. Yeah, it wasn't good. I didn't have the experience. But what I learned is that it's a big process to be able to get to where you want to go. So in college, I learned the art of TV. Now, when you guys watch TV or you watch on your phones, right, because most of you probably aren't really watching the TV. You get news on your phone or Twitter or X or Facebook with it, which is fine. There's more than just being on the air, putting on makeup, putting on a microphone, and going. You have to go out and film your own story. You have to ask interview questions. You have to go come up with the video to be able to put in your story. You have to race back to the station. You have to edit on whatever editing system you're doing. And then finally, in the last 5 minutes of your day, you're on the air. So there's a lot more to what I do than just standing here and talking on a microphone and looking decent because my wife knows how to dress me really well. And so that's what I think this pathway can help you guys in, and that's kind of where I want to dive in today, because I think as 9th and 10th graders, you have the opportunity to take these 3 or 4 years and really learn what you want to do. So with me in high school, and the one thing that I was really able to learn is I learned how to get my hands dirty in what I was interested in. General McLean gives you a lot of opportunities to be able to do that. And in arts and communication, you can go a bunch of different ways, right? You can go the way I went here, which is television. If you're not interested in being on television, you can stay in the same field. You can be a producer. If you don't want to be a producer, you can go be an editor. Heck, if you want to be in film and you want to be a movie star or a TV star, you can go into production and you can go into that sort of field and be interested in those kind of things. Or you can go into film. You can go into taking pictures and photography. There are a lot of great photographers that graduated from here. One's actually working with an NFL team, the Washington Commanders, which I think is pretty cool. So that's one of the nice things that this will offer you, and it's one of the things that I learned in my background. So after college, I left Toledo in the middle of a pandemic and came back to Erie, working at Erie News Now at the moment. I started in news. So obviously, for those of you who watch, you know there's news, there's weather, and sports. I started in news. And I started doing stories about all of these businesses that had been crushed by COVID. I mean, these businesses didn't have any money, and we had to do stories on businesses that were, for lack of a better word, losing their business. They were going underwater. And so what I learned then is I had to rely on myself for a lot of things. I didn't have a producer with me. I didn't have a director with me. I had to really figure out how I was going to be able to succeed on my own. And that's where the background at GM and the background at Toledo helped me. So after I did all these stories and I did all sort of these, what do you want to call it, these special reports on the news, what I learned is there were still some things that I was missing. I didn't really know everything. And that's where I had to draw on my background from high school and college. Now I'm in sports. I'm a sports guy at heart. I'm not a huge news fan. I like doing political stuff during the elections. That's about it. But sports is so much different than news. So, as I just said, even in TV, there are so many different ways and pathways that you can choose. You can go in news, you can go in weather, you can go in sports, and you can be in front of the camera or behind the camera. How many of you would be interested in being in TV, like being on camera, of some kind, like filming or something like that? Okay, somewhat, kind of. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little bit difficult to decide at this point. So, you know, when you're in high school, I think the one thing that's most important, in addition to learning what you want to be able to do, is to go out and do it. All right, anybody can shout this out here. What's the most exciting thing you get to do in school? Like right now? What's that? Development, okay. Photography? Art class? Okay, so you guys get to do some neat things in your classes. So in every class, right, there's what's called a curriculum, right? The teacher has something that you can do or has a set sort of thing that allows you to be able to grow in your certain class. But start thinking about this when you guys go back to your classes tomorrow through the rest of the month. Start thinking about what you can do to personalize your class experience. I'll give you an example. When I was in high school, and I'll talk about my freshman, sophomore year first. My freshman year, I did all of the classes, of course, that you have to take, right? But sophomore year, I took a class that was similar to photography and similar to the media arts classes you take now, but it was called something different. And in that class, we were doing what was a little bit of photography/storytelling, right? We had to take a story. We had an idea given to us, and we had to come up with a story of how to make it interesting to people like you guys in the crowd. And I wasn't a huge fan of it. I didn't like the idea of trying to put together my own story. I wasn't a great writer at the time, so I said, hey, what if I took my phone and I shot some video on my phone outside of class, and I decided to put a story together that way? My teacher said, okay. So I did. I went out, regular community, I took some video, all that fun jazz. And when I came back, I put together, like you would do on iMovie or whatever editing system you would do, or even on TikTok when you're shooting videos, right? And you post them and you get a bunch of people that watch the videos. And eventually I put together this story, and it was what you would see on TV. It was a story about the accident that was down the road, or this event that's coming to General McLean, or this sporting event that was happening and how fans were excited that we had beaten this big school. And for the rest of the entire semester and the rest of the class, that's all I did. I did video. And I had the opportunity to be able to not just do what the class offered me, but also do things that weren't offered as well. I had a chance to expand on that. That continued in college. In college, and don't tell your parents this, because they're going to get really mad at me. I'm not giving out my phone number and my email, because otherwise I'm going to get a bunch of angry emails, but I'm going to tell you this right now. 95% of what I did in college was not class related. That does not give you the excuse to skip class, okay? Mr. Meadows in the back. He heard what I said. He's not going to accept an excuse. But in arts and communication, a lot of what you do is not in the classroom. Classes are important because what classes allow you to do is build that foundation. But going outside of the classroom and doing different things is important too. So in Edinburgh, you may not think there's a lot of things to do, a lot of ways to further a career in arts or communication, right? But there was someone in the front row here that talked about, hey, I want to do photography. Why can't you just go out to Edinburgh Lake or Lake Erie, or in the fall, go around Edinburgh University's campus, or heck, go in your backyard and just take pictures? It's those creative things that can help you build what's called a portfolio or a resume and advance in your career. And the grades that you guys are in now, you can build up that portfolio right away, and you have 3 or 4 really good years of being able to do things that aren't class related. How about if you want to be on TV? How would you figure out a way outside of class to do something that would be interesting, that would help you advance your career in TV? Well, all of you have a phone. Shoot some videos of yourself, whether it's you do a TikTok or a Snapchat or something on social media, or if there's an event that's going on, let's say a football game. I'm a sports guy. General McLean's hosting a football game on a Friday night. Go right down to the sideline or right down to the fence and shoot a video and say, hey, game's over. GM won 34-17, and it was super cool. Let me tell you about it. And there's a resume, there's a portfolio. Hey, if you're interested in shooting video, how can you do that too? Well, if there's an event going on, like say just this past month, Guys and Dolls was put on by Mr. Stedman in the theater class. Say, hey, Mr. Stedman, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to stand in the corner here as the show is going on and take some video with my phone or a camera. And I want to shoot that, and I want to promote your guys' show, but also have something for my portfolio. And that's something as 9th and 10th graders you may not be thinking about at this moment, but I think it's important to as well. And I think the most important thing as you build your portfolio is have everything, do everything, and do things outside of class that maybe your teacher doesn't tell you necessarily to do. And I think that that's something that's really important as you go forward here, because whether you want to believe it or not, you're going to be seniors really, really soon. Time flies. I have a 1.5-year-old son now. I don't know where time went for me. I graduated here like 6 or 7 years ago, so it's hard for me to believe how fast time went. For me too, and from my experience, when it comes to this arts and communication pathway, we talked about how you can figure out what you want to do. You can also figure out, like Mr. Meno said, what you don't want to do. Because there's so much in this world of arts and communication, and it's under such a crazy umbrella, you might find yourself doing multiple things at one time. I'll give you an example. So when I work at Erie News now, I come in every single day, and I think to myself, all right, I'm going to do sports. I'm going to go shoot this sporting event. And on days like last week, or last couple days ago when we had our big snowstorm, my entire day consisted of me going out in a news car trying to find which house got dumped on the most in snow and how many accidents there were. It wasn't fun. I had to stop at every accident. There were like 30. It was rough. But by having the background and having the experience that I had, it allowed me to do that. And so you'll find yourself doing different things on a day-to-day basis, even if you're in a career in, say, photography. So if you want to be a photographer, you're thinking, man, I'm just going to take pictures, right? Well, what you don't know is that when you take those pictures, you got to go back and you have to edit them. You have to make them look good, right? It's almost like if you would add a filter on a selfie that you would take. You have to do that when you're editing photos as well, in a template like Photoshop or something else. How about if you want to be on air, you want to be on TV, you think you're just going to step in front of a microphone and talk? Man, I wish it was that easy. You have to go through and you have to edit your video. You have to film what you're doing. You have to put together a package, which is essentially a story. And you have to be able to know how to do all of those things before you can get on the air. Otherwise, people are going to be looking at a blank screen. And that's happened to me before too. So with this pathway and with this opportunity that you have, and from the background that I know I had when I was in high school, go ahead and give things a shot. And the most important thing is, ask the questions that you're afraid to ask. I can't tell you how many times when I was in high school or college that I had this idea in my head, and I didn't say it, and I ultimately regretted not saying what I wanted to ask. And if you're able to get over the fear of not knowing or not going for something this young, when you get to be a junior or senior, you're going to have that confidence. You're going to have that ability to say, hey, I know what I want to do, and I know how I have to go out and get it, and it will really be able to help you. And I think from my time at GM and being in Toledo and now being back in Erie, the one thing that you can do, in addition to everything we talked about, to be able to make yourself successful is, more than anything, make yourself diverse in what you do. Know how to film, know how to be a photographer, know how to be on air, know how to dress yourself, because that's important as well. And just know how to if someone asks you for something, whether it's, hey, can you take a picture for me? Or hey, can you draw me a picture? Or hey, can you take this video for me? Or hey, can you talk to me about something? Then it'll be super interesting and you'll know exactly how to do it. I want to take a few minutes, if any of you have any questions, and just kind of give an idea of what people are interested in, what people would like to know, because I always had questions. And I would rather hear from you guys than blabber on for 25, 30 minutes. Does anybody have any questions just about the pathway, any interest in a career, something that you think might help you as you go forward here at all? No? I was that boring? Go ahead.
I mean, I was thinking of photography as kind of a side job or
Yeah.
even going into oceanography because I was hoping to later on go into marine biology.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, and I already have an idea of what college I want to go to for that.
Okay.
I was hoping to go to Gannon.
Okay. How cool. How cool. Do you have an idea of, you talked about oceanography, do you have an idea of like what you would specifically like to do in that? I'm not very familiar with oceanography.
Probably closer to macro photography.
Okay.
Just underwater for the most part.
Oh, neat.
I feel like that'd be something really cool to do.
Yeah, and again, you got to do more than just take photos with that, right? You have to know how to edit. You have to know how to be able to film correctly, and you also have to know where to get the good angles of filming, which is important as well. So that's super cool. Oceanography. I could never do that because A, I'm not very good at swimming, and B, I also am not very good at taking the best photos and whatnot. But that's super cool, and the fact that you know how to do that. Open yourself up to other opportunities, and then maybe as we move forward here, you'll be able to know exactly what you want to do if it's not necessarily oceanography, but that's super neat. Anybody else have questions?